Can the New York Giants put aside its prime-time nightmares and pull off an upset in the Steel City against Pittsburgh? Or will Mike Tomlin continue his excellence atop the AFC North? Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tommy John Studio in New York City. I am your host, Charlie DiSturco, and this is Green Dot Daily, coming to you live every weekday at 3 p.m. Eastern on the Action app and YouTube channel. As we always do, on Mondays, we've got best bets coming from Sean Koerner and Nick Giffen in just a second. Brian Matthews hops on to dish out a couple of props on 4 down territory. Spoiler alert, a 10-1 anytime touchdown we both agree on is being handed out. Plus, we've got a same game parlay coming from Billy Ward before we head out to the island with Nick, Sean, and Gilles Gallant. It's a jam-packed NFL show, so let's start by looking at that matchup between the Giants and Steelers. I mentioned Mike Tomlin's excellence. Well, the Steelers are 21-1 straight up at home since 1992 and enter as 6-point favorites in this one. The Steelers remain atop the AFC North division with a win. As for Daniel Jones and the lowly Giants, Danny Dimes is 1-15 straight up on road night games. A horrible stain on his resume, but does that trend continue? That's why we have Sean Koerner and Nick Giffen on to talk more about the Monday Night Football game that's underway in just a bit. We're going to start with Nick Giffen because the luck rankings, while they're not fully a side or a total in this one, you do have a unique angle that does back the New York Giants. So please, Nick, tell us more.
Yeah, so in this game, we have two semi-luck angles, but when you kind of combine them, it gives us a really nice look. So this game is almost a luck over. The luck total is plus 9.2. We would need plus 10 at this time of year to be an official luck over. So we kind of like lean over here on this game based off the luck rankings. Also, the Giants are the slightly unlucky team in this one. It's a 20% luck gap. We ordinarily need about 40-50% at this time of year. And it's also nearly a 30% scoring luck gap, which is another way I've been compiling luck recently that also has some predictive power. So when we look at the luck rankings, that would kind of like lean, like I said, over and lean New York Giants. Well, if we're going to go over and the Giants are more likely to cover, let's just take the Giants team total. So that's the bet here. Giants team total over 14.5. You can get that minus 110 at a couple different spots. So when we do look at that team total, the luck team total based off the luck rankings is plus 8.9. So, you know, that's a pretty high number, second highest of the week. The highest was the Dolphins. I gave out on Convince Me on Sunday. That went over. So liking this team total angle. If we look at each team's red zone scoring, offense for Giants, of course, and defense for the Steelers, the Giants have the worst red zone scoring rate in the league, touchdown scoring rate, I should say, despite being 21st in non-garbage time offensive success rate. So, you know, we shouldn't always regress red zone touchdown rate upward for really low scoring teams. But in this case, with such a big difference, over 10 spots between their red zone scoring rate and their actual success rate, definitely would expect some positive regression for the Giants. On the flip side, for the Steelers, 4th best defensive red zone touchdown rate allowed, despite being 13th in defensive success rate in non-garbage time scenarios. So about 10 spots worse. So we'd expect regression as well for the Steelers defense, allowing more scores. Also, just a few other adjustments. The Steelers have faced the 6th easiest opponent schedule this year. So, you know, you got to adjust for the fact that they've been facing some easy offenses. And the Giants also had no Malik Nabers for a couple games. So when I make those adjustments, use the expected scores, et cetera, I'm getting around 16.5 for the team total here.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that I think the Giants seem a bit undervalued in general. Plus, it's always the trends. It's like, well, everyone doesn't want to touch Danny Dimes and the Giants on a primetime game. He's just not been a pretty one, especially with, you know, a few weeks ago with the Bengals and that late game cover that kind of spoiled away at the hands of a positive Chase Brown's over longest rush from Sean Koerner. But totally agree with you on the team total. Feels like the Giants are kind of live in this spot. But let's move on to props, guys. This is like Christmas. We have 2 props coming from each of you. Plus, we've got Action Island later on in the show. Sean, you are up first on your prop. Best available over at DraftKings.
Yeah, so I'm going with another defensive prop here. Tackle props have been very good to me this week, 5-2 on the week. So let's stick with them. I'm going with a player on the Steelers Minkah Fitzpatrick under 6.5 tackles at -120 over at DraftKings. He's safety for the Steelers. He's cleared this number in 4 of 6 games. When you look at the 4 times he cleared this number, they were against teams that allow an above average number of tackles as safeties, while the 2 times he stayed under were against teams that allow a below average amount of tackles for safety. So he's kind of sensitive to strength of schedule. And sure enough, the Giants are not a good team for safeties in terms of tackle opportunities. And Minkah, he tends to play deep most of the time. So, he's going to be in on tackles on, like running backs that make it to the second level, that get past Patrick Queen. So he'll clean up on those. Giants probably won't offer many of those. Tight end catches over the middle. Theo Johnson really doesn't provide many of those. Or deep shots that they connect, which, there could be a couple, but, he probably won't have as many tackle opportunities in this matchup. And on the season, he's actually allowed an 81% catch rate to the nearest target, 10% higher than expected and way above his career average, closer to 55%. So he's probably due for less completions right by him too. So I'm projecting him closer to 5.8. So again, he's probably going to get, a handful of tackles here, but around a 63% chance he stays under 6.5 tackles.
Yeah,
plus assists.
Another defensive prop for the evens maker, the new nickname for Sean Koerner after a successful even week yet again. And I know Ivan Pace, that was a fun Thursday night little win we had going. So another primetime defensive prop out of Sean Koerner. Next up, Nick Giffen going with a running back on the Giants side and an under in true Nick Giffen fashion. So Giffen, please tell me more.
Yeah, so we're going to go to the Giants running back, Devin Singletary. We're going to take his under on 1.5 receptions. You can get that -115 at 365. -120 is pretty widely available. I'm fine with that. Singletary, he's still coming back from injury. Last week he didn't even play 20% of the snaps, so he may still not be at his full snap rate compared to where he was pre-injury, which was around 70%. And even if he is, Tyrone Tracy has been the pass-catching back as of late. Singletary has been targeted on just 10% of routes versus single high safety looks. And Charlie, the Steelers play single high safety the second most in the NFL. So, obviously they're kind of man marking out running backs, and Daniel Jones is not really throwing to Singletary in single high safety situations. Also, of course, with the luck rankings and the team total and all that stuff, leaning Giants to cover, which could put Singletary in a more neutral or even leading game script than he's been in on his 5 games on average this year. And he's also due for catch rate regression. He's caught 91% of his passes. That has to come down. For his ADOT, which is -3.8 yards, crazy enough, that still is only an 83% expected catch rate. But we also should expect his ADOT to increase, which would lower that expected catch rate to around 80%, maybe even lower, because Pittsburgh's defense forces the 12th longest ADOT in the NFL. So my most conservative projection here, where I put everything worst case scenario, I get this at a coin flip. But if I tweak even one thing, this becomes value. And if I tweak all the things to where I'm expecting, I have them comfortably favored to stay under more than 60% of the time. And I think both Koerner and Raybon's projections as well, like the under here. This is our number one pro prop in the pro projections there.
Yes, and obviously you can get access to the Action Pro projections by subscribing and using code GDD20. And listen, it totally makes sense. Tyrone Tracy has become the receiving back. Even Singletary, I know he missed 2 weeks in return, but Brian Daboll said it's going to be a 3-headed monster backfield, so it feels like opportunities are going to come far and few between for Singletary in the passing game. Sean Koerner, you're going to the Pittsburgh Steelers side of things and an over. So please tell me more.
I've got an over for you, so get excited. I'm going with Jaylen Warren of the Steelers, over 47.5 rushing and receiving yards. Looks like the best odds right now are at FanDuel, -114 for now anyway. Warren has had a rough season to date. He dealt with a knee injury that held him out for 2 games. Just didn't really look healthy at the beginning of the season either. So, plus, Cordell Patterson was eating into his role also. But Patterson remains out tonight, and Warren might be the healthiest he's been all season heading into Monday Night Football tonight. So I think this is a good time to buy low on Warren. And last week, he actually outsnapped Najee Harris in the first half. I think we could see, a similar game plan this week. So, people that are on Najee Harris overs will probably be complaining on Twitter about Arthur Smith in the first half. If that continues, I would not be shocked if that happens. But this is a great matchup for Warren on the ground, as the Giants have allowed the highest explosive run rate in the league. You mentioned Chase Brown prop. That was against the Giants. And, with Wilson under center, I think he could be more involved in the passing game. We didn't see it quite as much last week. He did see 3 targets, but, Wilson tends to chuck it deep or check it down as running backs, whereas, Justin Fields would typically scramble in those situations. So I think Warren still has upside in his receiving usage too. So I like combining both markets because it makes it a little less game script dependent. So he can thrive in either game script here. Plus, we're able to capture if he has an explosive run or explosive catch, we'll get that by taking the total yards. So like the over 47.5 yards, projecting it closer to like 53.5 with about a 60% chance he clears 47.5.
You don't have to tell me twice to hop on and over. And one that makes sense too is music to my ears. Listen, last week you mentioned the Jets against the Steelers. You're going to use Najee Harris to just absolutely churn the clock. But like we said earlier, luck rankings, hoping that the Giants can do a little bit more. That all leads to Jaylen Warren seeing an uptick in usage, which is, music to the ears of Jaylen Warren backers. Nick Giffen, listen, look at this, guys. We got a lot of overs here on a Monday Night Football ugly game between the Giants and the Steelers. We're targeting Malik Nabers in the prop market, Nick, but you have a unique angle rather than just taking his over on yards.
Yeah, Charlie, I'm going with an over on a top player.
I can't believe it.
On a primetime game. What is wrong with me? It must be my birthday or something. But no, it's Malik Nabers' longest reception over 21.5 yards. It's actually minus 110 at a few places. Look, I talked about that single high safety deal for the Steelers. They played at the second highest rate. Well, Malik Nabers' targets per route run increases versus single high, and Daniel Jones also throws it farther versus single high safety looks, taking deep shots on 13% of his pass attempts versus single high, compared to just 4% versus 2 high looks. And Daniel Jones also throws to his first read over 75% of the time versus single high, compared to just 63% versus 2 high. And of course, Nabers is going to be that first read the vast plurality of the time. I don't want to say majority, but the plurality of the time. The Steelers also blitz at the 10th lowest rate. They get pressure at the 10th lowest rate. And Malik Nabers' targets per route run jumps to an absolutely bonkers 44% when there's no blitz and no pressure, which should happen, again, a majority of the time here. Don't even need the plurality part. Nabers has cleared this in 4 or 5 games this year, and I would think this would be a spot where he's more likely, not less likely, to clear it than in his average game. If you kind of line shop this, right, I looked at like FanDuel. To record a 20-plus yard catch, he's minus 180. But somehow, did you get just 2 more yards, right, to clear 21.5 for his longest? He's minus 110, which is crazy because at this range, it's not a lot of percentage points when you're talking like long catches. So I love this. I'd play this to 22.5 with minus 115 to the over, or even 23.5 at plus money.
Yeah, I love Malik Nabers in this one. Spoiler alert on what my pick is against the wheel. I'm going to be all in on Malik Nabers. Feels like a great spot to buy on him. Wide receiver 1, I mean, that's usually a typical my pick, but to see Nick Giffen also on it makes me feel a lot more confident. And of course, Nick, before we let you guys go before the island, you will have Bet What Happens live tonight for Monday Night Football at the 2-minute warning, right?
Absolutely. Bet What Happens live, 2-minute warning. Me and Grant. It's going to be a fun one. Look, everybody says this game is ugly. I'm excited for it. I love the ugly games.
Always sneaky with the high upside, maybe we can get some luck rankings going. I'm excited for this one too, as ugly as it is. But Sean Koerner, Nick Giffen, 5 plays at the top of the show, and you guys are coming back later on the island. So I'll see you then.
Sounds good.
National Tight End Day ruled Sunday's slate by setting an NFL record, 177 receptions for that tight end position. There were 16 of which that found the end zone as well. So let's take a look at the anytime touchdown market ahead of Monday Night Football. Pat Freiermuth is 6th on this list at plus 320. Have to throw out the tight end there. Malik Nabers, though, leads the way for the New York Giants, who look to rebound after a drubbing by the Philadelphia Eagles last week. He is plus 210, just ahead of Devin Singletary. Both quarterbacks, interestingly enough, that being Daniel Jones and Russell Wilson, find themselves in the top 10 of odds here as well. And now we welcome in Brian Matthews to the show to talk a little bit more about Monday Night Football. B-Matt, I'm surprised, you're the touchdown show guy. You capitalized on Njoku for tight end day yesterday. No tight ends coming up for this slate today. What's going on?
Hey, 90% of the battle is knowing when to walk away. And I'm just looking at this tonight, and you know what? I might have to make a play with just the tight ends after this. But for the sake of the touchdown, or for the sake of this show, I got some good ones I like.
All right, fine. I'll let you pass because you got some that you like better. I do have a touchdown tight end play coming later in the show, just a little foreshadowing. But it's first down here on 4 down territory. Of course, every time we got to go higher and higher in the odds. You're up first, B-Matt. Where are we headed, my friend?
Yep, so this is a guy where if you told me 3 weeks ago that I would be taking the over on him, I'd have laughed at you. But we're going to go first down. Najee Harris, over 62.5 rushing yards. Look, Najee Harris, to me, he's like the old man team at the rec center, that you can't beat for some reason. You got way more talent. You got the youth, the legs, but they've got the experience. They're running pick and rolls. They've clearly got chemistry together. So, volume is key here. So he's got 100-plus rushing yards in back-to-back games, something I really like. And I think one thing that the books maybe haven't caught up to yet is the fact that Justin Fields isn't back there anymore, in the sense that, that's a large portion of the Steelers' run game. So when you don't have Justin Fields and you've got Russell Wilson back there, who's a little more limited, Mr. Unlimited, as far as his legs go, then I think, you have to lean on the running backs to account for more of that ground game. So let's go Najee Harris, over 62.5 rushing yards.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And I didn't even think about the Justin Fields angle, that now that he's out, that's a handful of carries that are being now given to Najee Harris or Jalen Warren. And obviously we'll hear from Billy Ward too later on in the show. But Najee Harris has become that workhorse back, which is so weird to think about, because it felt like last year we were having conversations of like, man, Najee Harris might just be a goal line running back at this point. But a complete turnaround from Najee Harris. Starting us off on first down, B-Matt going with his over. Well, you mentioned, the old guy at the rec center that knows how to, run the pick and roll, maybe knock down a 3 or 2. Well, how about a young buck that wants to just show off, go for the alley-oop slam? Tyrone Tracy, over 22.5 rushing yards is my second down play. That's just a little bit less juice than your Najee Harris play. And listen, Devin Singletary returned last week, and Tyrone Tracy still had over 2/3 of the snaps played. The game completely went sideways with the Eagles blowing out the Giants, and he still went over this 22.5 number. The last 3 weeks, I think we've kind of seen Tracy is the best running back in this New York Giants 3-headed backfield between Gray, Singletary, and him. So I know the Steelers' rush defense is great, but I think, or I should say, I expect Tracy to get 6 to 8 touches, carries, that is. 22.5 rushing yards seems like a little bit less. And I actually think the Giants, for what it's worth, might be able to stick around with the Steelers, so the run game won't be abandoned, late in the fourth quarter. So second down, a pair of minus 110, 114 plays for you here on first and second down. Let's take it a little bit further, B-Matt. Third down and long, where are we headed?
All right, so we're heading over to game specials on FanDuel here for we're going to go Pittsburgh Steelers to record 5 or more sacks tonight. So, look, they're coming off a game, 7 sacks last week. Daniel Jones just got pummeled in their last game, too. I'm looking at TJ Watt and company. I just think that this is a game where the Giants are going to have trouble trying to establish the ground game with Singletary and Tracy, even if he does get the 22.5, which he should. But, I just think it's going to be an uphill battle. And when that happens, you have to rely on the pass. And when you've got Daniel Jones dropping back a lot, bad things can happen when TJ Watt's on the other side of the field. So At plus 360, I like the value on this, so we'll go with the Steelers to record 5 or more sacks.
I like you not trying to put me down a little bit too much on the Tyrone Tracy. You were like, you know what? We can maybe get 23 rushing yards from Tyrone.
It's a reasonable number, yeah.
Yeah, it seems low enough. Yeah, kick me while I'm down, VMAT. But I mean, listen, your sacks play makes sense. Andrew Thomas, obviously the injury to him has absolutely ruined that left side of the Giants line. So I think he should be running into trouble. On 4th down, listen, on Thursday, I went on with Gilles on 4-down territory, and I gave out a 4-1 anytime touchdown. Demarcus Robinson. That was before Puka Nacua came in. Those odds even jumped up north of 6-1. I know you guys, you and Kenny over at the Mooney Gang cashed in on that one. How about this for you? Theo Johnson, 10-1 for an anytime touchdown. He's got an 80% participation rate. I mentioned it was National Tight End Day yesterday.
Yep.
Well, we could call it National Tight End Week because Theo Johnson, Pat Freiermuth, they want to get involved as well. It's unfair that they only get Sunday. And the Steelers in particular, 22nd in DVOA to the tight end position. They've given up a touchdown to the tight end in 3 of 7 games, 43% so far. So I've been waiting for Theo Johnson to finally have a decent game. I feel like this is one of those opportunities where he can take advantage. I mean, listen, it's hard to be betting on the Giants to score. And that's why I think, it's worth taking a long shot on a guy that will be on the field every snap in the red zone. So I like 10-1 for Theo Johnson. Am I way over my head in this one? You could be blunt with me.
No. Hey, look, I'm going to tell you this. If Theo Johnson scores tonight, you and I will both be having a good night. We have that one played already, Kenny and myself. So, let's go Theo Johnson to the moon.
A little Hail Mary. Maybe we can, re-encapsulate the magic that Jaden Daniels had last night with his his 4th quarter Hail Mary. We have a 4th down long shot of 10-1 on Theo Johnson to find the end zone. BMAT also riding with me on this one. So just a quick recap. Theo Johnson, 4th down, 10-1. BMAT also likes the Steelers to record 5 sacks against this dreaded Giants O-line, plus 360 on 3rd down, and then a couple of running back overs. Najee Harris, Tyrone Tracy to go over their rushing yards in this one. Brian Matthews, quick and easy here on 4-down territory. Appreciate you hopping on, and best of luck, my friend.
Appreciate you.
We are back on to day 3 of the ladder challenge. Last time I succumbed to day 3 of the ladder challenge. Well, how about this time? I like what we've got working here between the Giants and the Steelers. Again, a reminder, we're trying to go from 1/10 of a unit to over 100 units. Right now, day 3, 4/10 of a unit. We'll start with George Pickens, 25 plus receiving yards. He's over in 7 of 7 games. And, well, that game against the Jets last week made one thing clear. Russell Wilson loves using Pickens in the Giants defense. The secondary is a bit of a weak point here, so I think George Pickens has an easy day to get 25 plus. Next up, Malik Nabers, 40 plus over in every single game this season, and I think there's going to be more of an attention to get him the football in this Giants offense. He was upset last week after the Giants were blown out against the Eagles. Even though this Pittsburgh secondary is pretty good, I think this is the area to attack him. Malik Nabers averages 12 targets a game. He's going to get a lot of work done. Wan'Dale Robinson, the next one, 4+ receptions. We know that when Daniel Jones is under pressure, he looks to get the ball quickly and underneath. And who's that guy? It's Mr. Wan'Dale Robinson, over in 6 of 7. The low ADOT, high volume threat. So I like him to get 4 here in this one. And then rounding us out to get us above that plus 100 mark, we've got Najee Harris, 25 plus rushing yards. He's been over this number in 6 of 7. Now that Justin Fields is not at quarterback, we're going to see more carries from Najee. 25 plus is really not asking for much, even though this Giants defense is not too bad against the run. But you put all 4 of these together, you get plus 112 on the payout. This is day 3 again, so hopefully we'll see you on Thursday for day 4. Let's stay on the prop trail by taking a look at BetMGM's most bet player props. Ahead of Monday Night Football, bettors are expecting a huge day from George Pickens with his longest reception and receiving yards over. Among the 3 most bet props, the lone Giants prop, as you can see, Wan'Dale Robinson's over, a number he's been in 4 of his last 5. Can Russell Wilson continue his success? His over on passing yards after a strong performance against the Jets also lands him on this list of the most bet props as we welcome in Billy Ward, as we always do on Mondays and Thursdays, to make a same game parlay for this primetime island matchup. Billy, I know you have a write-up over on actionnetwork.com. This SGP, just to maybe peel back the curtain a bit, is basically the same exact thing as what you've written up. We're pretty much in agreement on this. Just a couple of tweaks, but start us off the first leg of the SGP.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit hard to get excited and find too many bets. We had a great day of football yesterday, and then they give us Giants Steelers on Monday night, which is, slow end of the week.
Yeah.
But I'm going with the Giants +6. I forget if it was last Thursday or last Monday, but I went against the luck ratings. I was on an island there and got absolutely smoked. So I'm not doing that again. The Steelers have a positive luck score. New York is the 6th unluckiest team in the NFL, and they're getting 6 points. Should be a fairly low-scoring game. It's hard to cover 6 when you don't put up a lot of points. I know Russell Wilson looked good with the Steelers' offense. That was against a Jets team that's falling apart. The Giants surprisingly lead the NFL in sacks and adjusted sack rates, or did coming into the week. That's going to make life difficult for Russ. He's not as athletic or as quick as he once was. I don't see the Steelers putting up a big score the way they did last week. So as long as the Giants can do anything offensively, which we'll talk about why we're betting on that to happen later, they should be able to cover a touchdown.
Yeah, we'll transition right to that because my second leg is also a leg that you have. It's an alt line on Malik Nabers. I'm going to take 80+. Just to say what your article says, you have 90+ just to boost the odds above 10-1. But Malik Nabers, wide receiver 1 of the New York Giants. I think this is a great buy spot. I totally agree with your write-up on him. Right after an injury, he comes back, has kind of a slow day. The Giants get absolutely mauled. It's just a complete game script that's thrown out the window. Now we get to Monday Night Football where, as you're mentioning, you kind of expect the Giants, who have been unlucky both in the scoring department and just expected results department, to maybe score a bit more. It's going to come through the guy that averages 12 targets per game in this offense, was clearly frustrated last week saying he's open. Yes, I get Andrew Thomas's injury might loom large for the pressure on Daniel Jones, but I think that's only going to help him try and get out the ball to his first read, which will be Malik Nabers. They'll probably put him in motion plenty of times, and this is a Steelers defense that the way you want to beat them is through the air. They're one of the best rush defenses in all of football, a bit more breakable in the passing game. So I like Malik Nabers in this one. I wouldn't be surprised to see him put up 100+ yards, 10+ catch day. It has all the makings of a huge Malik Nabers day. Goes perfect with the Giants. I think even if they're trailing late, a backdoor cover, using Malik Nabers like we saw CeeDee Lamb last night do, it's all kind of in the recipe for a Giants +6. So we pair two pro Giants props. We got the Giants +6. We got Malik Nabers alt line to get us into the plus money on receiving yards. The third leg of our SGP, Billy.
Yeah, not really super correlated or anti-correlated, I would say, with the parlay, but it was plus money, which is what originally drew my eyes. And that is Najee Harris under 1.5 receptions at +125. He was getting a lot of catches earlier in the year when Jaylen Warren was out. Now they're kind of using them it reminds me of my Lions with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, with Harris playing the David Montgomery role. A lot of carries in there, a lot on positive game scripts, but they prefer to throw the ball to Warren. Since Warren came back, Harris has just 3 targets in those 2 games. So even if he gets 2, which is the upper end of that range, he's got to catch them both. And we're getting plus money on him to either A, see 1 target, or B, not catch both of his targets. Like that, don't really see any more upside for him. I don't know how else he gets above 2. So given that we're getting +125 or so on it, like including that one to get the parlay odds a little bit juicier.
Yeah, and also an Action Laptop prop based on if you can, use our pro tools, go look at, projections and whatnot. It totally makes sense. Warren comes back. Najee Harris, we saw last week against the Jets. They're going to run him 20, 25 times a game if they have that luxury too. And, the -6, the game script's probably going to be positive for the Steelers. Hopefully not for our sake, but you're going to expect a lot of Najee Harris runs just in general in this game. Jaylen Warren taking advantage of the passing game, as you mentioned. So the 3 legs of our SGP, you put Giants +6, Malik Nabers 80+ receiving yards, and Najee Harris under 1.5 receptions. You get 850 on the pre-boost, and DraftKings has a 33% boost, so that will get it over 11-1. Be sure to shop around as well. I know some markets don't have Najee's receptions. DraftKings in particular does. That's why we crafted it over there. Billy, how do you feel about this SGP? I mean, I guess it's got to be good considering it's basically your write-up -10 yards.
Yeah, I love both the props. you never feel great betting on the Giants, with Daniel Jones and all that. If I think of it as betting against the Steelers to cover a touchdown, I feel a lot better than if I think of it as on the Giants. So that's what I'm trying to keep in my mind as I watch this game.
You always want to bet on the Steelers as underdogs, fade them as favorites.
Yep.
Maybe Daniel Jones can put that primetime nightmares aside. But Billy Ward, a nice 11-1 SGP to get you through Monday Night Football's scary night. Enjoy the game, my friend, and thanks for hopping on.
Thanks for having me.
And just a reminder that if you want access to all of Action's pro projections, make sure to sign up for our annual subscription that is currently on sale. Access includes exclusive player prop picks from Sean Koerner and other members of the Action Analytics team. You'll also get access to exclusive expert articles, our best spread, money line, and total bets, and real ticket and money percentages. To sign up, visit actionnetwork.com/pro today and use code GDD20 at sign up. One more time, that's code GDD20 at sign up for $20 off. Over to the island. I hope you brought your swimmies, your sunscreen, and you're ready because it's a 36.5 total between the Steelers and the Giants. But as you heard at the top of the show, there's some sneaky value to be had in the player prop market. And we still haven't gotten Gilles Gallant's anytime touchdown bets as well. So let's head to the island and bring on our usual three suspects, Nick Giffen, Sean Koerner, and Gilles Gallant. And if this is your first time on Action Island, here's how everything's going to go. We're going to make a same-game parlay between the Giants and Steelers for Monday Night Football. Each of the experts here that you see are going to give out two props, and then me and the other two are going to vote one in, vote one off, the end result being a three-leg SGP. Nick Giffen, we don't have to waste any more time. What are your two legs for the SGP?
Let's start with the bet I opened the show with. Giants team total over 14.5. Like I said, I'm projecting this closer to 16.5. A lot of it based off red zone scoring regression, which should be positive for the Giants and hopefully more negative for the Steelers defense. And just a great matchup for Malik Nabers, as we talked about. I think a long Malik Nabers touchdown early in the game would be best for all of our bets that we gave out early on the show. So let's have that happen. So that's my first one. Second one, I'm going to go to the other prop I gave out, the second one I gave out, and that's Singletary under 1.5 receptions. This hasn't moved enough. Still love the under value here at minus 125 or so. Our number one pro prop projection, both Koerner and Raybon and myself, so I should say all three of us are showing under value on this one. So when all three of us are on it, I think you got to like it.
Yeah, how can you fade the pro projections when it's not only the number one ranked, but also all three of you guys show plenty of value to the under there. And then the Giants team total, we talked about at the top of the show. Feels like the Giants are kind of slept on in this matchup. All right, Gilles, Sean, we have to get to voting. Singletary or the Giants team total over? All right, we have the Giants team total 14.5 for Singletary, under 1.5 receptions. Let's show them in 3, 2, 1. Me, Giants, Singletary. You know, I knew Sean was going to go with the pro projections. I know the only coin flip was going to be if Gilles Gallant was riding with me or not. But of course, we ended up with Singletary under 1.5 receptions as the first leg of our same game parlay. Hopefully, there's some fireworks coming just on all angles. Malik Nabers, maybe even George Pickens, and I think that's a perfect segue to move into Gilles Gallant's anytime touchdown pick. Gilles, what are your two favorite?
Yeah, so on the Steelers side, you alluded to it, George Pickens. I mean, he finally caught a touchdown last week. Russell Wilson, a quarterback. I'm seeing kind of this similar trajectory like when we used to do the touchdown show last year, and we would always consider Courtland Sutton. Well, Courtland Sutton was such a primary target for Russell Wilson. He had a career-high 10 touchdowns last year and 8 touchdowns in the red zone. I see that kind of upswing for Pickens now, who has 10 red zone targets already this year. Great matchup versus the Giants as well, who are last in defensive DVOA against the deep ball, 21st against the pass. So if Russell Wilson is going to cook, I trusted that he's going to look for Pickens to score. So George Pickens would be the first option. On the other side, while I do like the Malik Nabers over on the longest reception, I think Wan'Dale Robinson is who we should look for an anytime touchdown with the Giants. 2 touchdowns this year, and he leads the team in red zone targets with 10. But it's that volume for why we want to keep going back to Robinson, who's averaging just under 10 targets per game. And the Steelers, they play zone a lot, top 8 rate. And Robinson leads the Giants in target share versus zone. I also just think that the Steelers' defensive line is going to get some pressure on New York. And if the Giants can't stop that pressure, I'm just going to see a lot of dump offs to Wan'Dale. I think those could happen as well in the red zone. So Wan'Dale Robinson is one option, and George Pickens is the other.
Yeah, Wan'Dale Robinson actually leads the Giants in red zone targets. Now, I know Malik Nabers was out for a couple of weeks, but slept on that. At 6-1, 550, wherever he is right now, Wan'Dale Robinson gets a lot of red zone looks when the Giants are close, as you mentioned it, because Danny Dimes is often rushed and has to get rid of the ball quickly. And then, of course, George Pickens, we saw last week against the Jets, everything's starting to kind of come together. Maybe he's finally happy in Pittsburgh with Russ under center. So, Nick, Sean, we have to get to voting Wan'Dale Robinson or George Pickens to find the end zone. All right. Do we kind of back the Giants team total over with Wan'Dale, or do we go with George Pickens? Let's show them in 3, 2, 1. Wan'Dale, Pickens. Another bet to choose from. Another DiSturco on the island by himself going with Wan'Dale Robinson. Nick, why did you go with George Pickens? I'm curious.
Yeah, I think it's a Malik Nabers game. I wanted to go with that. And if he gets that early touchdown, that forces Pittsburgh to throw more, which should help Pickens there. But I also like what Gilles was talking about with Pickens and the Russell Wilson connection. We saw versus the Jets. Russell Wilson just lobbed it up to Pickens like 5 times, and he came down with more than half of those. So I definitely think we could see another 1 or 2 of those for sure.
Yeah, definitely some fireworks that could be expected from Pickens. A lot of just throwing it down there. And you mentioned, I like the Courtland Sutton to Russ connection. It kind of all clicks together. I'm just hoping for some fireworks in general. Sean Koerner, you're up next, my friend. 2 bets. Where are we headed?
All right. For the first one, let's go with a sack prop. Let's go with Alex Highsmith of the Steelers to get a sack, minus 135. Finally returned last week after missing 3 games with a groin injury. My season-long bet of over 7.5 sacks isn't looking great with him missing so much time, but I still love his upside. Last year, he had the 7th most pressures in the league. And if you look at all the edge rushers in that range, they all had like 13-plus sacks. Highsmith only had 7, so he's due for some sack regressions, positive sack regression. He has a higher pressure rate than TJ Watt on the season. He's just an excellent edge rusher. And now he's facing a Giants team that allowed 8 sacks last week. Their, offensive line's dealing with some issues. They just lost, left tackle Andrew Thomas. And Highsmith will be facing off against Thomas's backup, Joshua Ezeudu. So, I love his chances of getting home to Daniel Jones tonight. And then my other one is the prop I gave out earlier, of course. It's Jaylen Warren over 49.5 rushing plus receiving yards. I already mentioned it, but last week he looked the healthiest he's been all season. Cordarrelle Patterson's still out, so I like his chances of getting 10-plus touches tonight up against this Giants defense that allows the highest explosive run rate on the season. So like his upside, on the ground game and in the receiving game, because Russell Wilson's going to be checking down to his running back a lot more than Justin Fields would. So I just like his upside tonight. I think now's the perfect time to buy low on a player like Warren. Yeah,
Warren, 59 rushing and receiving yards last week, and Najee Harris kind of took over that second half, and he still went over that 50 mark. And I kind of agree with you. I think Danny Dimes is going to be in for kind of a rough night with the amount of pressure that he's going to be facing from this Steelers front 7. So we have to get to voting Nick Giffen, Gilles Gallant between Alex Highsmith to get a sack or Jaylen Warren's over combo yards. All right. Do we back the steel curtain and Highsmith getting a sack, or do we go with Jaylen Warren? Let's show him in 3, 2, 1. Highsmith, Warren. You know what, guys? I think I'm just going to make a same-game parlay of the other picks and then just try and go head-to-head with you at this point, because once again, I'm by myself on an island, you know. Gilles, I'm curious your thoughts. Why did you end up with Warren ultimately over Highsmith?
Well, the receiving upside, I think, is really why I like Jaylen Warren, especially because when you look through the historics, Najee Harris's target rate really goes down as well when Jaylen Warren is playing. You look at even this season, the 2 best games that he's had from a receiving standpoint were games that Jaylen did not play. So I just think that Jaylen Warren, especially if the Steelers get into a trailing game script, I think he could see even more playing time over Najee as well.
Yeah, that totally makes sense, guys. Listen, I'm going to have to take a flight to DiSturco Island to back Highsmith sack, Wandell touchdown, and the Giants team total over while I leave you guys behind. But just a quick recap of the 3 legs that we ultimately decided as a group of 4. Jaylen Warren, 50-plus rushing and receiving yards out of Sean Koerner. Nick Giffen giving out the Singletary under on receptions. And then rounding us out, George Pickens to find the end zone courtesy of Gilles Gallant. You put all 3 of those together, you get north of 7-1 over at Bet365. So, you know what? I feel good about this, guys. I'm curious, Sean, how do you feel about how everything's kind of come together?
I feel great about this. I think, our 2 Steelers props kind of take advantage of the huge change at quarterback. Going from Justin Fields to Russell Wilson's a pretty big difference. And Pickens is the main beneficiary of this. Like, Russell Wilson chucks it deep. He's going to target Pickens. So love that. He's going to target Warren more. And then, Nick's prop is probably my favorite prop on the board. The under receptions prop. Tyrone Tracy's out there for, 3rd downs, 2-minute offense. So it's just going to be tough for Singletary to clear 1.5.
Yeah, you put all those 3 together again, you get north of 7-1. And Sean's a little too nice. He could say, me being on the opposite side of the voting every single time probably makes him feel better that I was the one that didn't have a say in how this same game parlay came out. But once again, the 3 legs, George Pickens on anytime touchdown, Singletary under receptions, and a Jaylen Warren 50-plus rushing and receiving. All right, Nick Giffen, Gilles Gallant, Sean Koerner, thank you so much. And before I forget, Nick Giffen, happy birthday, my friend. We'll talk to you guys again on Thursday. And just one final reminder of the same game parlay that Nick, Gilles, and Sean put together. I didn't really have much say to this. Devin Singletary under 1.5 receptions, George Pickens an anytime touchdown, and Jaylen Warren 50-plus rushing and receiving yards. You put all 3 of those together, you get north of 7-1 over at Bet365. Of course, we can't let you go without me going toe-to-toe with the wheel. And both of us were big losers on Thursday. Jordan Addison was ASS and Cooper Kupp, while Puka Nacua was a late add and then all of a sudden was just the workhorse receiver in that Rams receiving room. So the wheel and I both lost. I keep the same exact lead that I had entering. And, well, I feel pretty good. I've built up enough wins here, and I think I'm only going to continue to add because tonight I'm rolling with Malik Nabers, 66.5 receiving yards over. Listen, 12 targets per game for the wide receiver 1 of the New York Giants was upset last week after they were blown out by the Eagles. Said, I'm always open. And, if you look back at the tape, he's kind of right. 12 targets per game. He's been over this number in 3 of the last 4. And this Pittsburgh defense is so good against the run. I'm expecting them to take advantage, at least Malik Nabers, in the passing game. The Giants, as you heard Nick Giffen say earlier, a bit on the luck ranking, should have been scoring more. Well, maybe we see some more offense. So I like Malik Nabers over 66.5 receiving yards. Let's see what the wheel has to say. Bing, 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 bing. Russell Wilson over rushing yards. Does the wheel know that Justin Fields is not the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, where they actually designed rushing plays for him? Russell Wilson is just going to be scrambling, and as 6-point favorites, if that happens, he's probably not going to be scrambling much. The wheel going with a quarterback rushing yards over. That's when you know the wheel is getting very, very desperate is when it can't even go with a running back or a wide receiver over because it has no faith because he has been absolutely and utterly awful, that being the wheel, not Russell Wilson. So riding with Russell Wilson over on his rushing yards, going head-to-head with me and Malik Nabers on our over receiving yards. And just a reminder that any pick we give out here on the show, like the one you just heard on me and Malik Nabers, you can easily reference by following us in the award-winning Action Network app under the handle @green.daily. We keep track so you don't have to. That's going to be all for me on this Monday. Enjoy the ugly football game. Try to watch, the Giants and Steelers. It might be an ugly one, but it's football nonetheless. Best of luck on all of your bets. I'll be back here tomorrow talking NFL, NBA, the World Series, and much, much more. Y'all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you again Tuesday at 3 Eastern.